Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
What? Right, recording.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
Oh, hi, I didn't know if it was working.
Yeah, it said that your audio was connecting. So now that you're connected, welcome to STROLO-U.
Thank you. You too. Do you need, I don't know if you can see me. I could ask my daughter to help me. Am I supposed to have you see me or does it matter?
It doesn't matter with this course. So well, I'm with STROLO-U. My name is Jennifer,
Hi.
and I'm the graphic designer. I will be facilitating this course today.
Oh, the Kira wanted to say hi real quick. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good. That's great.
Okay.
Yeah. So, just let me know how you feel. We could just jump right into it.
Okay.
All right.
That's cool.
Okay, so welcome to STROLO-U, Strollo University, which means Strollo means stronger, longer, and it's that embodies the mission of the Cystic Fibrosis Lifestyle Foundation, which is to help people living with CF to live stronger and longer. So Strollo University was created at the start of the COVID pandemic as a way to offer both physical and mental activities and classes to help benefit the cystic fibrosis community. We are back this spring semester 2022 with an 8-week semester, and we have brand new classes incorporating more educational and informative classes into the mix. CFLF would like to thank our individual supporters and the STROLO-U instructors for their participation in making Strollo University a positive resource and experience for people living with CF. We hope you enjoy today's class, and please keep checking our website at cflf.org/STROLO-U for more updates and information on our classes, as well as our Facebook page. And I would like to give a special thank you to our wonderful sponsors. And let me just share my screen. Thank you to our sponsors, Viatris, Nestle Health Science, and Chiesi for your continued support of the CFLF Foundation and STROLO-U. And now I'm just gonna play a short video. Just give it a short introduction.
Kira.
So this it's a series of videos, so you let me just want to make sure that you can hear the sound and everything. And let me make sure that I pressed everything.
Sorry. I'm asking Kira for a pen. My pen died. I got it.
Okay. So The very first video is just a brief introduction into what personal financial well-being is, and you let me know if you did hear everything clearly, and let's begin.
Premiumbeat.com.
Welcome to the Dot University's lecture series on personal budgeting. My name is Richard Okamoto, and I will be your personal guide. You know, the Dot University uses a very unique approach. That approach includes providing a landscape and then providing building blocks. Now, why a landscape? Well, think of it, if you're flying over a city, you can see every single building within that city. And then, if you want to find out more about the buildings, you can just swoop down and get a clearer view of how many windows it has, the doors, the architecture. It's no different than if you had a car. Imagine if you're first learning how to drive a car. You know, we'll show you the picture of the car, and then we'll show you all the controls that you'll need to use to drive that car. With that, then, we feel that getting into the car, knowing how to turn on the car, how to steer it, how to stop it. Those elements, those building blocks, presenting those to you ahead of time should enable you to accelerate your time to knowledge. So, what are the 4 building blocks of personal budgeting? Well, the first building block is the budget template. What does a budget look like? The second building block is cash flow. Cash flow is nothing more than cash coming in, cash going out. The third building block is financial cause and effect, knowing why that money is being spent and why it's coming in. And the fourth and final building block is financial or spending trade-offs. Those 4 building blocks, understanding what they each mean, will enable you to perform your personal budgeting. So what does a budget look like? If you notice in this graphic, the budget has 3 distinct areas or parts. It has income, where your money's coming from. It has expenses, where you're spending your money. And the third part is what's left over. Now, here's one of the first things you'll learn about budgeting. If you spend more than you're bringing in, you're going to have a deficit. That means that you're borrowing money from someplace, or you've had some extra money that you'll.
Oh, are you having any issues? Let's see. Let me stop screen sharing. Let's see.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
When I press mute, did that also mute the video?
No,
Was
I
you
was
able to-
listening to it. Yeah, I was just trying to
Okay,
make
there
it
was-
larger. To see it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like any noise coming from my area to distract from the video. That's why I muted myself, but then I wasn't sure if I muted the video as well.
No, you're fine. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Just want to make sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Video.
Use for that spending level. If you bring in more than you're spending, you're saving money. And here again, that's what budgeting is all about, providing that visibility of cash flow. So what is a budget? We've talked about what a budget looks like, but what really is a budget? Well, a budget is where you capture all of your income and spending, as we've talked about. And then we determine, did you spend too much, which means that you had a deficit, or did you spend not enough, which means that you actually saved money. But what a budget does, it enables you to capture all that information, categorize all that information, so that you can actually manage your money. Your budget will be the primary tool which will enable you to manage your money. Well, why should you budget? I mean, it's a lot of work. But think of it as a budget. It's like your car. You know, your car is capable of speeding, going 90 miles per hour, 100 miles per hour, but the speed limit says maybe 45 or 50. It's really up to you how fast you drive that car. Well, budgeting's the same. It's really up to you to whether you want to overspend and have to borrow money all the time, or if you want to save money. And so if you look at it from that standpoint, a budget is like your speedometer. It's telling you how fast you're going. Now, if you want to step on that gas pedal, run up your debts, and run out of money sometime, a budget can tell you that will happen, but it's up to you to actually make it not happen. So how do you construct a budget? Well, we've talked about budgeting as income coming in, spending, and what's left over. How do you determine what your income is? How do you determine what your spending is? And most of all, how do you predict what it is? Well, in the upcoming lectures, we'll talk about historical data, how you can rely on that to pull together at least what you've done in the past, and then asking yourself the questions so you can predict what you'll spend in the future, and also what you'll earn. So we've talked about what a budget looks like. We've talked about why you should budget. We've talked about how to construct a budget. But how do you manage a budget? Managing a budget is tough because that's up to you. We're going to provide you a couple of tools of how to do that. And those two powerful tools are the first of financial cause and effect. That will help you understand what's happening in a real-time mode, how to look at your budget. The second powerful tool to manage your budget is spending trade-offs. And we'll go through in further detail in an upcoming lecture on that one also. Well, to summarize what we've talked about in this introductory lecture, we started off with what a budget looks like, the landscape. And we captured that in the budget template. As you saw, a budget has three primary sections: income, expense, and what's left over. We also then looked at what is the primary engine of budgeting. Well, that's cash flow. Cash coming in and cash going out. And if you spend less, or you basically have less cash going out, you save money. If you spend more or more cash going out, you're going into debt. You're going to owe somebody money to pay for that, unless you had some money from some time before that you can use. The other thing that we looked at was cause and effect, financial cause and effect, so that on a real-time basis, you can understand what your spending is doing and how it's going to impact that budget of yours. The last thing we touched upon was spending trade-offs. Spending trade-offs enable you to still achieve your budget goals. Now, with that summary, the next set of lectures we'll go into, and now we'll do our deep dive into those building blocks. Are you ready for the ride? Let's go.
Okay. So how you feel about this course so far?
Oh, what I need, and just work, guide me. It's very interesting what he's doing. I've been wanting something like this. Thank you.
Yeah.
A budget template then has a lot of line items or rows that represent where you're spending your money. You notice there's a number of different columns, and each one of those columns shows a month: January, February, March, April. In fact, you'll notice that in the month of April, that it looks like you ran to a deficit. You spent more money than you brought in on your income. But if you'll also notice, from January through March, you generate what we call a surplus. You saved money because you spent less than you brought in. If you'll also notice that the money that you brought in from January, February, and March, if you had saved that money, it was more than adequate to cover the shortfall you had in April. The April, if you see it now, shows you that the only reason you went to what we call negative cash flow, or you spent more than you brought in, because you had a large insurance payment. That is the power of budgeting. It shows you what your cash flow will look like from this month to next month, to as far out as you want to project your budget numbers. Well, let's take a deeper dive into the income section of your budget. You'll notice there that primarily wages are coming in as your primary income on this example. But you'll also notice that there's some money's coming in under commissions. Commissions are variable. And this is where the budget power really comes into play. Whenever you have variable income, you really need to understand your spending, because more than likely your spending or your expenses are more consistent month to month. By understanding that variability, you can avoid potential financial crises where you run out of money. As we move into the expense section or portion of the budget, you'll notice it's broken into two subsections. The first subsection is fixed expenses. Here you'll notice much larger dollar amounts on a monthly basis. The two major line items are your car loan and your mortgage payment. What's important about this then is that you don't miss those payments, and that's part of the function of the budget also, is to help you ensure that you make those payments once a month. It reminds you. I want to notice though, point out that in the month of May, you notice how your car loan goes away. Here again, I want to point out that fixed expenses aren't really fixed per se. For example, in this case, in the month of May, you paid off your car. That's wonderful. But you'll also notice what impact that had to your cash flow. You had significant savings in the month of May as your car payment went away. Now, if you look into June, something changed there. You know, your fixed expense of your mortgage went down. How could that happen? Well, you didn't pay off the loan, and I don't think the bank was going to allow you to pay less money. But here's what did happen. In the month of June, you saw, through your foresight, that interest rates for mortgages were down. So you refinanced your $350,000 mortgage from your existing 5% loan to a 4% loan. Look at the impact in June that made on your cash flow. Again,
Oops.
pointing out the power of what budgeting brings to you in terms of visibility
I
of
touched
those
it. Did I do
kinds of
something?
intelligent decisions.
Hello?
Well, we talked about fixed expenses, and now let's
Did I
talk about
mute
the
you?
other subcategory
No, you're
in
fine,
spending
you're
or
fine.
expenses, and that is
I couldn't see what he
discretionary
was
expenses.
saying, but I could see the
Well,
words.
just like fixed expenses weren't all really fixed. As you recall, when we
Are you able to see the text?
I could see that. Yeah, I just couldn't see whatever he was. That's okay. I understood what he was saying, though. I just couldn't see what he was showing us.
Okay, I'm sorry.
talked about paying off your car loan or refinancing your mortgage, discretionary expenses are not really all discretionary. For example, food is included. You know, I've got to believe we've all still got to eat. But how much you spend on that food is discretionary. So let's take a look at discretionary expenses. This is the area, by the way, which you'll be able to use for those spending trade-offs we talked about to still achieve your spending goals. What does that mean? Well, in the month of June, your parents called you up and they said, you know, you've got to come home. You've got to be here. There's a surprise. Now, your parents live 800 miles away, a little too far to drive and get back to work on Monday. So you've got to buy a plane ticket. That's going to cost you $450. That wasn't in your budget. So when you look at your budget now, not wanting to disappoint your parents, where can you find that $450 so you can still achieve your budget goals? You look around and you say, well, you know, I guess I'm not going to go out this week. I'll cut my entertainment expenses. I'm going to eat a little bit less. It's really to the point where I'm saying, I probably don't need to have those desserts this week. And between your food and possibly your entertainment, maybe a little bit of gas, you find $450 that you can squeeze down your spending. Lo and behold,
There's something I'm
you
supposed
can
to
now pay
see,
for
or
that
don't worry about it.
$450 airplane.
Hello? Oh, I can't hear you.
Oh, hi. Do you see this graph on the screen?
No.
Let's see.
Oh, wait. No, wait, hold on. I see the words.
But can you see the video, the entire video?
No, I see like a cursor going back and forth, but it's black. It's blank. I see so you can still achieve your goals, budget goals.
Okay. How about now?
No, sadly.
All right. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna try again. Oh, let's see. Here. Are you able to see everything?
No, that's weird.
That is weird.
I guess I'm not doing it. Is there anything else I could be doing wrong? Or
Let's see. I could try a new, hmm.
that's something I don't know how to do what you're doing.
So you can still achieve your budget goals.
Let me see. I'm gonna share points of the screen. Are you seeing anything in the box?
No, I wonder why it's not. Could it be my
Okay.
phone?
Yeah, I believe it's on your end. So let's try to figure it out.
I think I'm doing something
Escape.
wrong here.
Let's see. I'm gonna start screen sharing.
I can't see when she switches it. Huh? Because she'll show me the screen.
Mm-hmm.
I know, it's weird. It was showing it before. All right, next, I should have done the computer. See, look.
You seeing anything? I'm sharing my screen currently.
See what I mean?
Oh, it is.
No, for some reason, what's wrong with my phone? Could it be doing something to block it? I mean, I saw it a few minutes ago.
Well, that's weird.
I know. We just saw it before. I don't know what to say. I knew you're trying. I feel bad.
Do you want to attempt it on your computer? Because it might not be able to allow you to view it from your phone for some reason. I don't know. It could probably be a setting on your Zoom account that's not allowing you to view it on your phone.
Oh. It's a computer. I could go get. We're kind of having computer issues. I have one computer at Kira's. I could use it. I can go charge real quick. How do I
Uh-huh.
get back to you?
The same link that was on the email
Okay.
that was sent to you when you registered,
Right, just have it
or unless you're just fine with just hearing the audio.
Yeah, I'm fine. I mean, well, yeah, that's fine with me. Unless there's
Okay.
something I'm gonna really miss with pictures, but I'm an audio learner, so I'm okay if I just hear it.
Okay. So if you're okay with us continuing, we'll just continue this way. If you want to charge the computer on the side and just see if that will work.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to just press play and have it continue for now.
$150, so you can still achieve your budget goals. You look around, you say, well, I guess I'm not going to go out this week. I'll cut my entertainment expenses. I'm going to eat a little bit less. It's really to the point where I'm saying, I probably don't need to have those desserts this week. And between your food and possibly your entertainment, maybe a little bit of gas, you find $450 that you can squeeze down your spending. Lo and behold, you can now pay for that $450 airplane ticket and your budget's intact. That's the beauty of your discretionary expense area. It helps you meet those budget targets by using the powerful tool we talked about, spending trade-offs. Well, we've talked a lot about the rows in your spreadsheet or your budget. The rows meaning your income, your expenses, and then what's left over. We haven't talked much about the columns by month. You'll notice, by the way, in your budget, January, February, and March were actuals. What does that mean? That means they really happened. You captured the real data. Now, what's important about that is having that history, having that trend of January, February, and March available to you helps you project out and predict what your spending will look like moving forward.
I've got the computer. I'm so sorry. Can I launch it now on the computer?
Yes. Because you could be both on your phone and on the computer in Zoom at the same time. You just
Okay.
have to mute one of them.
Okay, cool. Open Zoom.
Mhm.
Let's see if I know what I'm doing. It's slow, but launch. Where'd it go? Launch meeting. Open Zoom. Enter your search. What does that mean? Enter your search term.
Let me give you the meeting ID.
That's weird. It didn't. I might have to ask here. I hate to ask you.
Yeah, sure. I'm
Okay.
just going to post it in the chat.
Oh, here it is. I agree. I'm trying
Okay.
to find a chat. Hold on, it's sending me. Join.
Okay, I see you. All right. I just press submit. Just give it a little bit. Okay, there we go.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm gonna hang up. That confuses me. How do you hang up?
It's okay.
Okay, I can only do one thing at a time. Hello.
Okay. Let's see if you can see.
Where'd you put it?
Can you see the screen?
Oh, not again.
Oh,
No, you are viewing the screen that says view options. What does that mean? Oh, it says view options.
I don't think that would make a difference.
No, I was trying to help, but it doesn't.
Unless it's Zoom that's being weird.
I don't know. That's weird. It's okay.
okay. Because because I tried this out earlier and it worked fine. Because I did like a test run with my sister, and she was able to see it, hear it, everything was
Oh, it's
fine.
okay. This is what happened. That's why I don't understand how to use all this stuff. It's okay. I can still listen if you want me to.
Yeah, sure. So we'll just continue and yeah. Share screen. Again, I'm sorry about that.
No, please. You just been nice. I don't know what's happened.
What a budget's really all about. It's helping you to predict what your cash needs will be, predict what your cash flow will look like, so you can avoid any types of financial crises. So in an upcoming lecture, we'll talk about how to actually capture that historical information. But I just wanted to point out now that retaining that historical spending and income information is critical to helping you predict or forecast your budgeting needs. Well, we've talked a lot about the budget, the three major sections, the rows, income, expenses, and what's left over. We've talked a little bit about the columns, which are the months, and specific to those months, which was history. We mentioned the importance of history with regards to predicting the future. But it's going to take more than just that. You've got to look out in the future and say, what's going to happen to me? For example, you may be looking at buying a car in 3 months. You've got to plan for that down payment. Should go into the budget. If, for example, you're starting school and all of a sudden tuition is going to pop up, that's a large dollar amount. It's got to go into your budget. May not be there in your history. You would miss that if you were relying just on your history to tell you what your budget's going to look like. So, as you can see, as you look at your life and you look out into the future, now what you're being trained to do is look at what that financial impact will be, what that financial cause and effect is going to be. And that's what's going to impact how good you are at forecasting your budgets. Well, in summary, we've now had the opportunity to dissect what a budget looks like. We talked about the sections, income, expenses, what's left over. We've talked about the columns, which are the months. And we've talked about the history and how important it is to understand that history to predict or forecast what your future budget periods will look like. We've also talked about how important it is to look at events in your life and then take those events and translate them into financial impact, which we call financial cause and effect. We also discussed spending trade-offs, particularly in the area of discretionary spending. And by performing those spending trade-offs, enabling you to still achieve your budget goals. What we're going to do now, though, is move beyond just what a budget looks like, and we're going to actually walk through and we're going to start constructing one. So it'll be a lot of fun, so let's take a look. How many times have you heard this? I don't need to budget. Budgeting is a waste of time. I can keep track of all my money in my head. Who needs to write it down on a piece of paper? It's a lot of work. You know, I don't see the benefit in it. But on the flip side, how many times have you heard this? I ran out of money this month. I had to borrow money from my parents. You know, I wanted to pay off my car next year. Of course, I said that last year, and it didn't happen this year either. Wow. Why does that happen? It's because even though I budgeted, I didn't understand why I was budgeting. I didn't have a goal. And therein lies where we start with budgeting. You've got to start with a goal. Goals help you keep focused. It helps you keep on track. How do you know what spending trade-offs to do if you don't have a goal from which to hit that savings target? So whenever we talk about budgeting, we're going to step back and say, what is your goal? Why are you saving money? Why are you trying to make that spending trade-off? By understanding that, it will help you to actually take the right action. All right, you've got those goals, you've got your budget, you keep running short of money. Why? You've got extraordinary expenses coming up. You've got a wedding, not your own. You've got wedding gifts. You've got to take a trip. Your parents are asking you to come visit them. You've got expenses coming out. Are these normal? Probably not. But it doesn't matter. You're running short of money every month. What should you do? So let's rewind the tape a little bit. One of the first goals you should consider is building an emergency fund. What is an emergency fund? Well, it started off as a rule of thumb of having 6 months of income in the bank. Where did that come from? It came from the idea that if you're out of work 6 months, and typically you shouldn't be, but with economic times now, it may be. It may even have to be a year. People asked, financial planners said, have 6 months of income in the bank. So what we suggest is that's your first savings goal, is to build an emergency fund so you can cover these kind of emergencies. Well, one of the first goals we talked about was starting an emergency fund. You've done that. You've got a great emergency fund. Let's say you've got a year put away and it's saved. You feel pretty confident right now. So now what do? You've got your vacation money set up. You've got a separate Christmas fund set up. But all of a sudden you're looking around and you're realizing, I've got $10,000 in credit card bills, not to mention my car loan. And so what's the next opportunity? Pay off that debt, specifically if it makes sense. You know, if you're paying 5% on that car loan and you're paying 25% interest on that credit card debt, is there anywhere else that you could earn anything close to that? No chance. So it makes sense to pay off that high-cost debt. Americans are being crushed by debt. Don't be one of them. So here again, number 2, get your emergency fund down. Number 1, number 2, pay off that debt. Paying off debt is critical. If you recall what happened on the example when the car loan was paid off in that May time period, it had a huge positive impact on the cash flow. So look at that and say, I'm going to pay off debt, I'm going to get rid of that burden, and I'm going to have more monthly cash. So how expensive is debt? Well, let's take an example. If you have a credit card balance of $5,000 and your current average interest rate, let's say, is 15%, pretty reasonable rate for credit cards anyway, and let's say you pay the minimum payment of $75 per month. Do you realize it'll take you 12 years to pay off the original balance of $5,000, and it will cost you $5,500 in interest charges over that 12 years? So in essence, you've paid off that debt twice. That's how expensive 15% interest is at a minimum payment. We've talked a lot about budgeting goals, and you've done a great job because now you've got an emergency fund set up, 1 year's worth of income. That's a thumbs up. You paid off your car loan, and what you're also looking at is paying down your credit cards. Very expensive debt. So fast forward, you've got no debt, you have an emergency fund. What do you want to do next? Well, the logical would be go have a party, have some fun, spend some money, and we suggest you do that. But in addition, save some money. Saving money is one of the key ingredients to building, accumulating financial wealth. We talk about this all throughout the program, the GAP approach. What is the GAP approach? It's generating cash flow, it's accumulating wealth, and it's protecting what you have. Here we're looking at the big G, generating cash flow. And by generating that cash flow savings, it will help you fuel your accumulating wealth. Well, talking about savings, it's probably appropriate at this point we talk about the lifetime money model. In the 50s, a group of economists developed a lifetime money model. One of the major contributors was Franco Modigliani, who for his efforts and his work on this lifetime money model won a Nobel Prize. What the model primarily states or shows is that during our 20s and earlier, there's a gap between what we have in terms of what we call spending and our income, and that gap is usually covered by our parents. As we move beyond our 20s and as we're just getting established, we use debt to essentially cover the gap between our spending or consumption and our earnings. As our earnings continue to grow during our 30s, we see that we actually then start to earn more than what we actually need to consume or spend. What that does then is creates an area of savings, and then those savings become part of what we need when we start entering our 60s and our income starts to decline. Our consumption levels stay relatively the same, but that gap of income to spending then is covered by the savings that we had accumulated during our 40s, 50s, and early 60s, and by some government support. The comment that was made by the lifetime money model economists were that if we detracted from this model, then there was a high likelihood, that the individuals that did would actually run into financial difficulties. Well, we've talked a lot about goals today on budgeting. We talked about setting up that emergency fund. You did that. As I pointed out earlier, thumbs up. You paid off all your debt. Another big thumbs up. And now you started saving money, helping you then to start accumulating wealth. So the other point I just want to leave you with to re-emphasize is that I talked about it earlier. You've got to spend some money and have some fun. If budgeting is no fun, you're not going to do it for very long. Budgeting has to be flexible. It has to throw some entertainment in there. Don't sit back and say, I've got to budget my money. I've got to save this money. I'm not going to live my life. That's not going to work. We do advocate that you have to live your life. So, build that emergency fund, pay off your debt, save some money, but you know what? Spend some and have a good time. Okay, we've talked about budgeting, and specifically we've talked about history. How do you build that history? Where do you get started? You've got all this information around you. What do you do with it? I could tell you to put it here, file it, and by the time I got through done talking, you'd be either sound asleep or you would decide not to ever budget in your life. We're not going to do that. We're going to take what we call the shoebox approach. First off, find every single financial document you can, throw it into a shoebox. At least you got it all in one place. That's really important. Now, some of you may have online statements or other online forms of information. That's great also. We'll talk a little bit about in the future how you can actually use free tools to actually bring that financial information onto your budget automatically. But for now, let's assume that you have paper copies of everything. Throw it into the shoebox. Throw in there your bank statements, your brokerage statements, your credit card statements, anything where you spend money or you bring money in, your paycheck stubs. Throw it all in there, consolidate it, know where it's at, because as long as you have it in one place, now you can pull it out to start building that history base, the shoebox approach. Well, you got your shoebox set up, you've got all your papers in it, and you've got more than just your papers. You've got your income tax returns in there, right, with your W-2s. So let's start off. How do you figure out what your monthly income is? Well, paycheck stubs are a great place, a great source for that. Not only because it shows your gross income, but it shows what you've gotten withheld for income taxes, for Social Security. It shows you what your net payroll is, and that's your net income that can be used on your budget template. In addition to that, you should have your tax returns in there, which attached to them is your W-2, which reflects your annual income as reported by your employer. You can help use that to validate your weekly or monthly income you're putting on your budget from your paycheck stubs. Bank statements used to be something of the past. They were printed out, you'd have your checks and your deposits, and that would be the end of it. But nowadays, with electronic banking, bank statements have become even more critical with regards to capturing your financial historical data. Why is that? Many of us now use debit cards. Where are those transactions captured? On your bank statement. Many of us do direct payments from our checking account to potentially the power company to pay off our mortgages, to pay off our car loans. Where is that spending data captured? In our bank statements. The bank statement captures all of that and helps us then make sure that we don't have to look for all those little pieces of paper where we actually paid something. So your bank statements are a critical element within your historical information. Use them. They also then categorize and capture your payroll. For many of us, we no longer get our paycheck, sign it, and deposit it. We get direct deposit. Where does that show up? On your bank statement. You'll find that the more electronics that we've actually incorporated into our daily lives of spending and depositing, that the bank statement becomes a critical accumulator of that information. Use it. I've talked about bank statements. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about brokerage account statements. Some of you are thinking, well, I don't trade stocks and bonds. Why do I have a brokerage account statement? But most of us do. For many of us, we have 401k programs with our employers. More than likely, part of those funds are being invested in stocks or bonds or other financial instruments. Even though you may not use this information directly to construct your budget with, it's important to see what's going into those accounts, especially since it's being more than likely withheld from your paycheck. So I mentioned those just so we understand that. Now, in some cases, some people have actually borrowed money from your 401k plans, in which case it's really good to review those accounts anyway, just to make sure we know what's going in and out of your brokerage accounts. We've talked about bank statements, we've talked about brokerage account statements. Now we're going after the big one here, credit card statements. A wealth of information for your historical spending information. What's nice about credit card statements? They even tell you where you spent your money. So credit card statements are a wealth of knowledge for you. There's a little factoid that we always talk about, by the way, and when we talk about budgeting techniques, one of them is that, even though cash is very hard to track, it's very hard to spend also. It's amazing when you have to spend $5, take that $5 out of your pocket and actually spend it. On the flip side, credit cards although they track your spending very well and very easily for you, they're actually much easier to spend. You whip out that plastic and boom, it's gone. Something about it. But credit card statements are a gift from the standpoint for managing historical data. Now, we've talked about all your bank statements so far, your credit card statements, your brokerage card statements. Now, what we're going to talk about lastly is any kind of loan documents that you may have, car loans, mortgage payments. You may even have some what we call revolving lines of credit, like on appliances. So any of those documents, we need those so that we understand what are your monthly payments. You may even have tuition, student loans. All of that has to be captured so we understand what your payments will be on a monthly basis and projecting out how they may change. Well, now that you've captured all this data, you've got it, the shoebox approach, you've got your bank statements, you've got your broker statements, you've got your credit card statements, you've got all the data in one place. Now the difficult part is you've got to take all that information and you've got to categorize it by what kind of spending was it? Where did you spend your money? You have to then take that information and put it onto your budget template. That's what's the beauty of credit card statements, because they tell you all that. But that's what we need to do next, is categorize all that spending so you can know where you spent the money. We've created this historical data, and I just want to point out that it's important that the historical data, or your actual spending, your actual income, is continually updated, kept current. It's having that current historical data which will help you predict what your budget will look like as you're looking out 2, 3, 4, 5 months. What's even more important is that you collect that actual spending and income data over a period of a number of years. Because in that spending data, you'll have certain, what I call, lumpy spending items, like that $1,000 insurance payment that only comes up in June of every year, or your property tax bill that only comes up in December. Having that historical information for more than a 12-month period will really help us with our projections and our prediction of our future budget spending. So what do we look for in this historical data? I mean, we've got all this data of our spending and our income. I mean, how can we really use this to predict or project out what our budget or our spending will look like in the future? Well, if you recall, we broke down the spending accounts by fixed or discretionary. So I think it's safe to say more than likely your fixed expenses will continue looking out into the future. It's similar to the history, unless again you've done something like pay off that car loan or refinanced your mortgage or paid off that student loan. Now, discretionary spending, that will be a little bit different. That may be a little more volatile or may vary a bit more. Here you can pick out those elements which you may think or you think could be as consistent, possibly as your fixed expenses. Things like utilities, gasoline for your car, and for example, food, if it's been relatively stable. So the question comes back, does history repeat itself? You know, when it comes to your spending, it really does. There's a lot of patterns we see in our spending, specifically with fixed expenses, as we mentioned, and also with discretionary expenses. So once again, I'll reinforce, having that historical information is critical. Now, as you know about things that change in the future, we're going to talk about that next. You know, we've talked a lot about history and how we use that history then to look at trends to help us project out what our spending will look like in the future. We've talked a lot about itemizing events in the future and then understanding the financial impact of those. We labeled that as understanding financial cause and effect. But then there's also things that may happen that we have really no idea they're going to happen. Maybe an inkling. Call that intuition, as it may be. But if you feel that there's something of a high likelihood, for example, my tires are a little bald, 3 months out I'm going to need tires, drop that in your budget. Put it in there. It's much better to have that in there as an item that you know may happen than be surprised by it. So when we look at your forecast, throw in some of your intuition in there, and I think you'll be satisfied that you did that. Well, we've gone through, we've captured all the history, we've looked at the spending trends based on that, we've identified things in the future which may affect us in terms of our spending and our income, and then we have all this data. What do we do with it? What do we do every single day? Well, that's what we're going to talk about next, the big item. How do we manage our budgets? every day. Here we are. We've got all the data. You've got your budgets built. You've got your historical in there. You've forecasted out what you think it's going to look like. You're on the road. And what happens? Well, I'll give you an example. One of my students came to me not too long ago, was kind of upset, and I asked him why. He said, I've learned everything you taught me about budgeting. I've gone out there, and it didn't work. I go, well, what do you mean, what happened? He goes, I ran short of cash every single month. And I thought to myself, how could that be? How could that happen? So I said, well, let's talk about, what transpired here. Scratched his head, thought back, and I said, what happened in the month of March? Everything was fine. I budgeted just like you told me to. Had my budget out for my food, my expenses, I thought I was golden. I said, and I still came up short about $300 or $400 at the end of the month. So I asked another question. I said, did something happen that month? Not out of the ordinary. Nothing ordinary. Nothing exceptional. I had some friends over for St. Patrick's Day. We didn't have any beer, so I went out and spent some money on beer. I do remember we bought about 10 pizzas. And, now that I think about it, I think we bought more than beer. I think we bought some alcohol too. But I don't see how that could have impacted me. I did budget and all. And I stepped back for a moment and I said, how much do you think that ran? How much do you think that cost you? He sat back and he said, well, maybe $500 or $600. But, I had it covered. I had entertainment. I had an entertainment budget. And I said, well, how much is your entertainment budget? He said, a couple $100. And then a moment, all of a sudden he stepped back and he goes, I overran my entertainment budget, didn't I? I go, yeah. And then it dawned on me, one of the most important points of managing a budget isn't the analysis, looking at the historical data, isn't doing all the predictive work, isn't doing the spending trade-offs, because how do you know to do the spending trade-offs unless you know the magic button? And what is that magic button? It's understanding what financial impact will your decisions have on your budget when you make them. It's really nice to say we can look back and we can say, I spent too much money here, or I didn't spend enough money here, and I saved money here. That's great. But our life doesn't happen yesterday. It happens today and it happens tomorrow. So we'll revisit this topic again, but understanding the financial cause and effect on a real-time basis, that will be your magic button to manage your budget. We talked a little bit about the magic button. I want to put that off, the financial cause and effect, for just a moment. And I want to talk about some techniques about how to help you understand what's happening in your spending, or at least from an emotional standpoint, understand what you're doing. Let's talk about cash. A lot of people now use credit cards, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But there's something about cold, hard, green cash in your pocket. I'd like to have you consider this sometime. Instead of using a credit card for this week, maybe use cash. It's a little bit harder to track, but I want to have you try this experiment. And instead of going out and swiping that credit card for that latte over at Starbucks, I want you to whip out that $10 bill or that $20 bill and pay hard, cold cash. Because you know what happens to most of us is when we have to put down that $10 bill, that becomes real. It's amazing how spending cash is very hard to do. It's also very hard to track. But it's amazing in terms of how using cash may actually help you control your spending. Well, we talked about the difficulty of spending cash, how sometimes we're reticent to because it's real money. But let's talk about credit cards. Many of us have credit cards. What's really interesting is, I have to admit, I went to Jack in the Box last night. I was a little hungry and I had to find someplace that was open, and Jack in the Box is open 24 hours a day. I went there and I bought a few things, and I won't mention what, but when I got to the front window, they said, cash or credit card. And my first thought was, credit card? Sure, why not? I swiped my credit card. This morning I got up and I had to run out and do some errands, and I was just passing by a sporting goods shop and said, I need some shoes. I'm just going to drop in there. Maybe if I see something I like, I'll buy them. And I did. Saw a pair of hiking shoes that I really liked. I thought, well, I don't know. But then I saw that they take American Express, Visa, MasterCard. So I thought, why not? I picked up those shoes, came up to the front counter, swiped my credit card. Easy as that. Why not? But the point of this is, spending with a credit card is easy. It doesn't seem like it's real money leaving your pocket. The nice thing about credit cards, the credit card statement categorizes all your spending for you. So the moral is, credit card spending is easy. It's easy to track your spending, but the likelihood is you may just use it more than you think. So let's go back and talk about that magic button, financial cause and effect. Understanding the financial cause and effect of your daily decisions, having that kind of knowledge, having that information is what will enable you to achieve your budgeting goals. All right, now that you've got all this information and you've determined what the financial cause and effect were, or was, or is, now what do you do with all this stuff? Now you've determined, like that example of one of my students, you've overspent $450. You understand the cause and effect, but you're going to have that party anyway. You know it's going to cost you $400. What do you do? Well, the magic button at least told you you're $450 now over budget. Got that. So the next major element, the fourth building block on budgeting, is spending trade-offs. You got to go find that money. Where are you going to find $450 to compensate? Well, maybe you're not going to go out that week. Maybe you're not going to drive your car as much. Maybe you're going to basically eat a little bit less later. Those are what you're looking for, those areas to find how to offset that $450. Because of financial cause and effect, you at least know that you've got to go after. And once you figure out how to offset it with trading offsets, spending trading offsets, now you're back on target with your budget. Well, now that you've gone through all of this, you've built up the history, you figured out how to project out, predict your budgeting or your spending, your income. You've picked up a couple of the key tools of how to manage your budget, understanding financial cause and effect, understanding how to do spending trade-offs. You've got that all pulled together now, and all you have to do now is use it. That's what managing your budget is all about. It's just using those tool sets.
Back. Say something. Excuse me. Oh, hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
No, I feel bad. I forgot my back. I have back issues.
Yeah, go right ahead. You can.
How long is the class till?
It's actually, this is the last video. It's just supposed to be like an hour.
Okay.
So this is like the last clip. It's just a recap. If you want to go over the questions that they have, we can do that. But like, since it's like just like you and me, you do what you feel comfortable with.
Okay.
So if you need to, switch back to your phone or whatever, like wherever you're comfortable.
Well, either, yeah.
Because this last video is just like 4 minutes, 50 seconds.
Okay, yeah, and it's hard, like when we're done, maybe I could find a way to get a video of it so I can see what the graphs look like, because I can't
Yeah.
see anything.
Yeah. So you just if you just let's see, send me your email. You could just put that in the chat and like
I can do it. I can do it.
I'll do that right now. And
How much? Sorry. Okay, so Taylor. Seven one eight. Yes, ma'am. Lisa Taylor. Well, it's supposed to say Gmail because her G. We have computer issues. We need a new computer. Her G won't work, so you'll see what I mean. It's Lisa Taylor 018, but it's at Gmail, but
Okay,
Gmail's
all
not
right.
showing.
Thank you. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to I'm gonna send you an email. I'm going to have the what you call it, my boss, Brian. I'm going to CC him in the email, and so he'll know what I'm doing. He'll know the situation. I will tell him about what happens, and we'll take it from there to help you, so you'll at least have like the images.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I'm just writing down
Tell her. You can
the
come out.
email.
Melissa, it's almost, we can leave soon.
leave in a little bit, okay?
Okay.
Oh, sorry, my daughter's talking. I told her about, she has an appointment. I told her we're fine.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna play the last video and then we'll be done. And I really appreciate your patience with like, all these
Oh, that's fine. You're not,
technical
what
difficulties.
what is your name? Because it says Tiffany on this, but it's not.
My name is Jennifer.
Jennifer, hi. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I'll give you my email. My email is jennifer@cflf.org. I put it in the chat,
Oh, thank you.
and I will be contacting my boss, the head of the foundation, Mr. Brian Callanan. And we will make sure to help compensate you with the visual.
Oh, cool.
difficult-
Thank you.
All right. All right, now I'm just gonna play the last one.
Exercise. So let's just summarize what we've learned. First, we've learned what a budget looks like. Budget has three primary sections: your income, your expenses, and what's left over. We also talked about a budget columns versus rows, where the rows are all your expense items, all your income items, what's left over. And the columns then represent time each month. For example, in that we have typically 3 months of history and about 9 months of forecasted spending. That's what our budget looks like. Well, now that we know what a budget looks like, let's talk about it again to remind ourselves, what are the 4 building blocks of budgeting? The first building block is what we said, the budget template, what a budget looks like. Remember we talked about earlier, it's like flying over the city. You got a complete landscape of everything because you can see where everything is. You can see where your income comes from, where you're spending your money, why you're spending your money, when you spent your money by month. That budget template is the first building block of budgeting. The second building block is cash flow, the engine which drives your budget. Cash coming in through income, cash going out through a lot more channels, which is your spending. The third building block is that magic button, understanding financial cause and effect. By understanding financial cause and effect, when it's happening, that enables you to then use building block number 4, spending trade-offs. You can use spending trade-offs then to help offset any overspent items. For example, remember that airline ticket that the parents asked, can you come and see us? That $450 unexpected expense can then be offset by something else, enabling you to achieve your budget goals. You know, we talked about what a budget looks like. We talked about the 4 building blocks. And specifically, we talked about the second building block, cash flow. But I want to leave this with you also. Cash flow is like your car. You know, you drive your car, it can go a certain speed, but depending upon how fast you push that gas pedal will determine how fast you're going to go. Well, cash flow is the same thing. You know, you can work really hard and you can bring in more cash. But like pushing that accelerator on your car, if you push down on your spending, you can spend a lot of money. So how fast you drive your car, that's up to you. How fast or how much money you want to spend, that's up to you too. Well, we summarized and we recapped what a budget looks like. We talked briefly again about the 4 building blocks. I just brought back the comments about cash flow. It's really up to you in terms of how far you want to press that accelerator and how fast you want to expend your cash. I also want to remind you of how to construct a budget. Get that history, get that shoebox out, capture that information so that you have that history to help you predict what your budget will look like. Also, think about your actions in the future. Think about what may happen, and then translate that to what that will impact, how that will impact your budget. In addition, throw in a little bit of cushion in there. Think about some things that may happen, like those tires that may wear out. By adding all of that together, you'll have a much more accurate idea of your budget and be much better off when that month comes.
You can see. It's almost
Well, we've
done.
captured all this data, and I can't emphasize this enough. You've learned how to construct your budget. You've learned how to essentially drive your budget. But to really drive your budget like a race car driver, the power tools are financial cause and effect and trade-offs. Once you learn how to use those power tools efficiently, quickly, and seamlessly, you're going to drive your budget like a professional. Financial well-being is predicated on 3 major building blocks: generating cash flow, accumulating wealth, and protecting what you have. GAP. Generating, accumulating, and protecting. You've learned about budgeting today, and budgeting is the core ingredient to generating cash flow, the big G. So with that, I want to thank you for going through the budgeting exercises, learning about budgeting, and then soon to be practicing it. Thank you.
Okay, that was the last one. So that was the last video.
Sorry.
So, thank you again for your participation. I will make sure to send that email as soon as possible. And you have a wonderful day, and
Mom, you won't believe me. Oh, you too. Thank you very much.
yeah,
It was very helpful, I have to admit. Even though I can't see it, it's okay because I can auditory. So I'm needing this, so thank you.
yes, yes. And thank you again for supporting STROLO-U and for supporting the Cystic Fibrosis Lifestyle Foundation.
Well, it's nice to meet you.
The same. And hopefully I'll see you with maybe in another class or in our other events that we'll be having going on. Like we'll have like virtual and in-person events.
Oh, wow. Okay. That'd be great. Thank
Mhm.
you.
I'll just write down in the chat our website.
I don't know if you knew my daughter Kira Taylor. She was very blessed to get a grant from you guys, a recreational grant.
I believe I saw one of her photos.
They did like, what number were you, Kira? She was the
Here's the
1500.
1500.
Yeah.
Oh,
And-
so they did like a whole interview with her, correct?
Yeah. Yes, I mean.
Oh,
But I
wow, that's
wanted to
great.
thank, just to let you know also, we're really impressed because that gets her to the gym and is really cool. So thank you.
I
Oh,
knew the
thank you.
name seemed familiar.
I thought you looked familiar. I don't know. I swear when you were doing a thing on Facebook, I think you were in it. They were like sharing the video and I'm trying to write, you did a great job, but I can't, my G doesn't work. So,
Well, I appreciate it.
I'll do, you did awesome because the type, we gotta get a new computer. I can't type G's, so
Okay, wow, that's great. Yeah, so,
thank you, Jennifer.
well, I'm glad that, your family has been directly,
It
impacted
has,
by this organization.
yeah, you guys are amazing.
Yeah, my sister also received a grant,
Oh,
and now she works as the grant coordinator with
Wow.
CFLF.
oh, what is her name?
Her name is Tiffany. So you've been in contact with my sister.
That's who Tiffany is. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. When did you start working with them?
Towards the end of last year, there was a position open. With graphic design, and I'm an artist, and
Ooh.
my brother and sister both have cystic fibrosis.
Well, both
And
of them.
so,
So
yeah,
you know.
yeah, yeah, I know.
So you're like in it. Oh,
Hmm.
I'm happy for you.
Yeah, and working with CFLF has been like a great opportunity for me to get to help other people, going through just trying to make things work for CF, and just being a resource, able to to help others. It's just that's just how my parents raised me to
Aw.
always give, because they always say when you give more, you will receive back, and then
Oh, I
you
love-
help someone
aw.
else.
I love it. Come here. You gotta say hi real quick.
Okay.
Okay.
I got changed like
This
for the
is-
fourth
this
time
is-
today.
This is Jennifer, but her sister.
Hi.
Wait, Tiffany has cystic fibrosis. You might
Yes,
have seen her.
McDaniel.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why she looks
Well,
familiar.
also, what was it? She was on one of the video chats that I was in.
Yeah, because I believe she was also there when they was doing the interview, because I believe she was working at the time. I'm not sure if she was there for that specific one, but I know that she was a part of it.
Yeah. I remember, I know she was on different Zoom meetings with me and everything.
So she got a job, but she also got a job.
Oh,
for her
that's
graphic
cool.
arts talent.
Yeah, because my sister also received one of the grants, and that's how
Yeah.
and then from there she volunteered, and then now she is the grant coordinator.
That's so cool. You never know,
Yeah, it's a small world.
I know. I like that we're finally meeting others, or she is. Even though you're
Yeah, I
here,
know.
I mean,
Yeah,
makes it less-
I saw your name and it didn't click that you're you're cute.
well, I thank you, and I enjoyed looking at your house. By the way, it's
Oh, that's
relaxing.
pretty.
Oh, thank you.
You got this cute thing over there and a nice little cup, and it's relaxing looking.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just in my living room
Oh, well, thank you.
in my
You
parents' house.
you deserve a break because you worked hard. So, thank you.
And thank you so much. And Kira, wow, it's such a small world. It's just
Yeah.
I'm glad
yeah.
that we
So
got
you
to-
already know about CFLF. You already know about the benefits and all that.
Oh yes, I still can't believe it too. So, what you guys do. So thank you. I gotta go help her sister get out of the house. She's getting antsy.
Okay, yeah, and I will definitely get that email sent. And yeah, thank you. And I just have to say, thank you to our sponsors, Nestle Health Science, Beatrice and Chiesi. with their support, they help us to continue to do programs like this and to help out the CF community with, informative classes like
Yeah.
personal wealth.
Well, thank you.
All right. So I'm going to end the stream now, and you have a wonderful day.
You too, sweetie.
Bye.
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 Bye.